and welcome to another episode of A Pirate in Chains. This time we're in the little town of Franklin, about 35 minutes south of Hobart and on the way to Rosehaven. So, here we go. Franklin was settled in 1836 when a settler named John Price was allocated some land here. And Tasmania being Tasmania, I'm proud to say that I'm actually close friends with at least one member of the Price family. Worked closely alongside another one for many years, and only last weekend was comprehensively beaten in a yacht race by one of the younger generations of the Price family. In this episode, we're going to find out about what happened to Jimmy after he left the penal system, after he finished his time at Port Arthur and transiting through the prisoners' barracks, joined the assignment system. Jimmy's conduct record says on the 3rd of March 1856 he was assigned to a Reverend Mr Murphy here at Franklin, although Dad's history says it was Mr Murphy here at Signet on the other side of the Huon River, about 11 k's southeast. But as Reverend Murphy was first appointed to Franklin, later extending his parish to include Signet and the rest of the Huon, we'll go with the official record. Now, interestingly enough, whilst the official record says Reverend Murphy, it was in fact Father Murphy, because this is St Mary's Catholic Church. And of course, Jimmy himself was a Catholic. Between his arrival in Van Diemen's Land on the 14th of August 1852 and his appointment here in March 1855, Father Murphy was actually on Norfolk Island. And who knows, Father Murphy and Jimmy might have met on the island, but we can only speculate on that. Father Murphy had actually been brought down here to establish the Catholic parish of the Huon based here at Franklin, and maybe they just picked out some Catholic prisoners to help him do that. But I'm guessing maybe Jimmy wasn't the best type of person to be able to assist with that, considering his attitude to authority and other things. So he was only here for 1 month, after which he returned to the prisoners' barracks. But at least he didn't spend any time in these cells. Well, that's because these weren't built until 1889. So where we're at now is the location of one of the original ferries across the Derwent River, the Risdon ferry, which operated up until 1976, I believe. And it was a cable ferry pulled by cables across the Derwent here. Interestingly enough, that would be actually an advantage, because even though the Derwent is quite narrow here, being the narrowest, it also would be the fastest flowing. Well, anyway, back in July 1856, Jimmy's next assignment after the prisoners' barracks was to Mr Archer, who operated the Risdon ferry. At that stage, the cable-pulled ferry was actually hand-operated, so Jimmy would have actually been involved in dragging goods and cargo across the Derwent here from what is now the zinc works at Risdon on the other side to Risdon, which they now call East Risdon, which was actually originally the Risdon. You need to watch Angus Thornett's video about Risdon and the zinc works to work out where that came from. The original ferry house shown in this picture is no longer here. The ferry house had been sold to a Richard Cleburne, a landholder from these areas. And in 1860 he also bought the ferry from the government and transferred it into private hands, although of course Jimmy was no longer working for them. Now, while Richard Cleburne is not connected directly to Jimmy's story, his family did establish this chapel here, St Margaret's Chapel, shortly after his death, a couple of years after he bought it in 1860. And it is one of the earliest dating buildings in this area, considering that the ferry house no longer exists. In 1820, the Colonial Hospital, operated by the Convict Department, opened here on Liverpool Street in Hobart, and it provided the headquarters for the medical establishment for the treatment of convicts. Now it's the Royal Hobart Hospital, and it's still here on exactly the same site. In late November 1856, Jimmy was admitted here to the hospital. There's no actually recorded reason why he was admitted, but what is actually amazing is that in all his time in convict servitude, it's the only recorded time that he was admitted for medical treatment. Pretty resilient old bugger, don't you reckon? Then again, maybe he spent a little bit more time across the road. The building behind us is the clubhouse of the Kingston Beach Golf Course, just on the outskirts of Kingston in southern Tas. And being residents of Taroona back when I was a kid, Dad was a member of this golf club and used to play here regularly, and I used to caddy for him and even had my own cut down little golf clubs. Now, I'm pretty sure that was before Dad started doing the research on the family, but if it wasn't, it's a little bit ironic that we didn't realise that my great-great-great-grandfather, Jimmy, had been posted here in November 1856 to Mr Murphy on assignment, because this, at that stage, was a farm, and this was the farmhouse. Jimmy was here for 6 months, 12 years after he had been at the Browns River probation station, the very first posting he had before he started getting into strife. And unfortunately, this was the last time he got in strife again, because after being here for 6 months, after having that great record since halfway through his time on Norfolk Island, Jimmy got involved in a fight, and as a result was charged with assault and got sentenced to 3 months hard labour. So for Jimmy, it was back to the prisoners' barracks and 3 months on the treadmill. Jimmy must have pedalled that treadmill as fast as his great-grandson Keith later would to win this trophy in the 1928 Hobart Amateur Cycling Club 75-mile race. Because after only 2 months on the treadmill, he'd completed that 3-month stint. Jimmy spent 2 months on that treadmill and he didn't enjoy it. That was the last offence that he ever committed in his career. Jimmy received his ticket of leave on the 1st of December 1857. Finally he was well, not completely free, but at least free enough to work for himself. His first assignment was to Mr. Patterson. Maybe it's a bit of a reward because Mr. Patterson owned a brewery. The street numbers of today don't exactly match up with the street numbers of the 1800s, but it was in this region where was located Patterson's brewery. So we're here at one of the few bits of the Hobart rivulet that still runs freely visible, at least through the city. Although apparently the Hobart City Council are looking at making it more accessible and having some more views of the river, because this rivulet was actually the lifeblood of Hobart, bringing water from the foothills of Mount Wellington down through the city. And Patterson's brewery was located just behind us, probably where that red brick building is. And it was one of 40 breweries that were in Hobart around the time. Each of them drawing their water, I presume, from the rivulet, which is a little bit interesting because further up the rivulet there were quite a number of tanneries, so maybe that gave the beer that little tang and a bit of nice colour to it, I guess. Jimmy was given his ticket of leave on the 1st of December 1857. Now, a ticket of leave didn't mean that you were completely free. But in one way, it was another one of those small steps along the way to freedom. And 1858 was going to be one of the biggest years of his life. So that's where we'll leave this episode. And we'll catch up with Jimmy in the next episode, which is episode 10, the conclusion to the series. So if you enjoyed this one, please click like, please subscribe, hit us up in the comments below, and join us next time for the continuing story of the pirate who's no longer going to be in chains. Thanks for watching. In this episode, we're going to find out about what happened to Jimmy after he left the penal cell. In this episode, we're going to wait for the traffic. In this episode. It's like a 4-lane highway here.